council, administration, and those who are streaming from the confines of your home. First and foremost, Happy New Year to everyone. And I hope that those who are on this evening as well is that you find yourself healthy, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing brighter days ahead in 2021 certainly with the onset of vaccines on the horizon. There is some daylight, but we still have a lot of work to do. And there is no question that we need to continue to adhere to the recommendations of public health, that we wear a mask at, when we're in close proximity to friends and doing our businesses, essential businesses. And when you can't social distance, and that's another key, social distancing and wash your hands often. That's not going to change for the next at least 6 to 9 months, and we need to turn the tide. And so it's critical that everyone, I guess the best advice I can give anybody is treat yourself as if you're COVID positive, and everyone around you. And if you do that, you'll adhere to the public health regimen. And if we all do that, we'll get those darn numbers going in the right direction. So I know there's a lot of angst out there and COVID fatigue, but COVID fatigue is not going to get us through. What we got to do is we got to dig deep and continue to march on for the next 6 to 9 months. And then, we'll be able to relax a little bit more. So with that, members of council, all present, and to the members, before I go beyond our roll call, I just want to report out that we did have a closed meeting this evening. An electronic in-camera meeting was earlier started at 6 p.m. this evening, which was closed to the public under section 239 2C and F of the Municipal Act 2001, which permits a meeting or part of a meeting to be closed to the public when the subject matter being considered is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for all that purpose. So at this meeting, council received legal advice regarding pending disposition of land by the municipality, and direction was given by our and to administration. So we'll dispense with our moment of silence, but certainly I do want to take this opportunity to really remember our colleagues and friends in the United States. I mean, they're going through an extremely difficult time in what's transpired in the last week or so. The loss of life by a police officer and 4 others. So keep them certainly in your thoughts, beyond today, and hope that cooler heads and that democracy stays first and foremost in the minds of our American colleagues. We'll dispense with our national anthem, and to the members, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening.
Your Worship.
Dr. Altenhoff.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, and through you, just on bylaw 2021-01 regarding the Youth Advisory Committee membership, my 2 children are noted, so I will abstain from any votings on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That'll be duly noted by our clerk. Nothing further, then we'll move on to the minutes of the regular council meeting, December the 8th, 2020. The minutes of the regular council meeting as were duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted. Councillor Tonio and Deputy Mayor Becchetti, on those minutes, any errors or omissions? I've heard none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The minutes are adopted. There's no supplementary agenda adoption requirements, and we have no delegations to be presented to council this evening. But we do have 32 items of communication. So if I could have a motion to receive those 32 items of communication. Councillor Jobin, thank you. And Councillor Houston. On the communications, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Members of council, there's no action required, but there is an item 31 that we need to make a comment, and it's from the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, and that was dated December 21st, 2020, on one of our employees, Adam Sokolowski, our Public Works Labor Certification, and it's good to know that he has received his Associate Road Supervisor all rights and privileges under the responsibility of the province of Ontario. And so we certainly, on behalf of all of us at council, want to congratulate Adam on his successful completion of his road supervisor certificate. And so with that, I'd like to call upon Mr. Bartnick, who's his boss, maybe to bring some comments and a little bit about Adam.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We are extremely proud of Adam's accomplishments to date. He has worked really hard to get the certification. He has to run through a number of tests and exams, and he's gotten some really good grades on those, so we're extremely proud of that. We're going to continue to support him as he continues his professional development. He has passed exams for the next level up, which would be the Certified Road Supervisor. He just needs to put in a little bit more time with the experience in the lead hand role, but that's something we're going to be working towards with him in order for him to achieve. So very proud and very happy for him.
All right, well, please, Mr. Bartnick, extend our congratulations on behalf of members of council and certainly administration for a job well done. I'll ask members of council, is there any piece of communications that you deem fit that you would like to bring forward at this time? Yes, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. And it may not require any action, but I do note there were a couple of mentions of the Canadian National Railway and payment of drainage terms that have been raised. And I'm wondering if we've had, with our, I don't believe, do we have a CN line in our boundaries? I'm trying to remember because I know VIA takes care of our first one up here, and CP that crosses in the Hamlet area. Does this affect us, and are we having this kind of issue with the payment of our drainage charges?
I'll have to certainly defer that to Mr. Bartnick. Mr. Bartnick.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So in advance of the meeting, I had a good conversation with our drainage superintendent. There has, I guess, historically been a lot of challenges dealing with the railroad companies. Although more recently, I think at the end of 2019, there has been some meetings locally with the local drainage superintendents and Via Rail. There's been some acknowledgement from Via on the requirement for improved drainage within their corridor. Unfortunately, I think due to the pandemic, there hasn't been any recent meetings on that, but there's at least an interest in working with the local municipalities to improve drainage. The CP Rail, kind of a different entity. Again, very challenging to deal with, and not only on drainage, but other road crossing issues. But I think late last year, with the help of Transport Canada, we've been able to get in touch with the right personnel locally. And so I think relationships are going to be improving as we move forward. So I don't foresee any anticipated issues, I think, with the railroad companies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then the other thing that I would add is on the Bill 229, that section, Schedule 6, the Conservation Authorities Act, that, as you know, many authorities, and I know Councillor Jobin did bring that up at our previous meeting and so forth. I'm happy to say that the province and have now established a task force with members from conservation authorities, members from municipalities, whether elected official as well as administrative staff, and Also, Kathy Brown from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, one of our senior policy advisors, is now on that particular board. So they're going to be sitting down and certainly having that conversation. So I want to give compliments to the government for listening and for establishing this task force, and then coming forward at some time with recommendations on the results of this task force. So I would imagine that'll be probably sometime in late winter or certainly the beginning of spring before I think anything comes back to us. All right, if there's nothing further, then committee minutes are the next items on the agenda, and we have the Policies and Priorities Committee meeting on December the 8th. If I can have a motion that the December 8th, 2020 minutes of the PNP committee meeting as duplicated and presented to be adopted. Councillor Jobin, thank you. And Councillor Houston, any questions or comments? I've heard none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Next is the town Tecumseh Business Improvement Area Board December 9th meetings, and I'm looking for a motion that the December 9th minutes of the town's Tecumseh Business Improvement Area, or BIA, as we're duplicating delivered to the members, be adopted. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Tonio, any questions or comments? I heard none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Next is the Police Services Board meeting minutes of December the 10th, 2020, and that the December 10th, 2020 minutes of the Police Services Board meeting as duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted. Deputy Mayor Bichetti and Councillor Houston, any questions or comments? I heard none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Now we'll move on to reports, and our first, I believe, 3 reports. I think were presented by our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report on the OPP policing contract seeks Council's authorization to allow us to finalize an agreement with the Ontario Provincial Police that would provide for an extension of the current contract, essentially the same as what we have been under for the last 6 years, for a further 3-year period. And subject to it being finally reviewed by our legal counsel and council's favorable consideration to the 2021 operating budget allocation for police services, we're recommending approval of that arrangement. As council is aware, the town has had a Section 10 police service under the current Police Services Act for quite some time. As I mentioned, the most recent agreement expired at the end of December 2020. It was a 6-year agreement. It was thought that by then the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 would have been in full force and effect. However, due to the pandemic and complications arising from that, it has not yet been proclaimed and the regulations have not yet finalized. So we are rolling into 2021 under the same Police Services Act, and therefore an agreement remains required for a Section 10 board. So the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau provided a draft agreement this past fall, and we've discussed that at the Police Service Board at their meeting on December the 10th, 2020, to essentially vet that draft agreement through the board. And, under the understanding that the extended agreement essentially provides the same level of service and same policing service as what we have been receiving over the last 6-year period. with the exception that under service levels, there is a new clause in the proposed contract that has been added that provides for 1 year prior written notice with costs for counseling and enhancement. That's not really relevant to Tecumseh, as we do not have an enhancement for police services with the OPP, nor is one proposed. In terms of the reason for a 3-year period is that we do anticipate that within that 3 years, there should be enough time for the Community Safety and Policing Act to come into force. And under that legislation, these agreements are no longer required. And on the same agenda, which will be spoken to later by Corporate Services, there is a building lease agreement which formalizes the accommodation of the OPP police service in the town's building adjacent to Town Hall. This agreement also has provides for a 3-year term, once again, in anticipation of a change in how we maybe have a business model with the police. We wanted to make these two agreements coincident with each other. In terms of financial implications, the annual billing letter was received in September of 2020 with the 2021 OPP annual billing statement package, and it's basically a rollover into 2021. So same sort of status quo in terms of how the billing is done. The year-end adjustment for 2019 is $33,961. The total 2021 estimated cost for policing is approximately 3.4 million. And so the combined total cost, adding those two figures together, is $3,483,602. And that is included in the draft 2021 operating budget for council's consideration. That is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Evans. Yes, Councillor Dowie, and then Councillor Allenhoff.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. To the CAO about the 3-year duration. You mentioned the 1-year notice for a change, and we are expecting the legislative change. Does that work both ways in terms of giving notice for termination of contract, or is that simply on the provincial side where they will say the new act is enforced, therefore your agreement is null and void?
Sorry, through the mayor to council. So it does work both ways, but it's almost a formality, this particular contract, because of the Community Safety and Policing Act not rolling along its process in the time period that they had anticipated. So we won't be the only board that has to extend its agreement into, past this past year. They're uncertain as to how the new regulatory environment is going to treat existing agreements. And that's why we're kind of reticent to sign up for a 5-year. We shouldn't be penalized for a change in regulatory framework, but we're kind of hedging our bets, thinking that if we just extend it for a 3-year period, that should sort of safely, without any form of penalty or what have you, get us to a point where we would transition into the new policing system with detachment boards and all the rest of it. So even that is going to be a change for us in terms of how policing is going to function within the area.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Dowie. Councillor Allenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Ms. Evans, just to confirm, it seems that this is, as you've indicated, a bit of a status quo kind of rollover into the next 3 years we have. I know there was something certainly that happened this past summer that I think a lot of the residents, at least I received a lot of feedback on, with that traffic blitz. So I didn't indicate, or I couldn't see any kind of provisions for that or statements for that in this agreement, but nonetheless, that certainly is something that could potentially, kind of continue as we move into this agreement, which I'm sure, we would all very much appreciate, because the feedback was generally quite positive.
Yeah, and through the mayor to council, I mean, I think that's evolved and is considered to be part of the service. We have taken measures through our public works and engineering department with the traffic trailers, speed trailers, and what have you, and forwarding resident complaints, many of which have been received through members of council, and you know, with the helpful watch of citizens and them reporting where and time of day where these you know, speeding incidents occur. The police have had better information to carry out enforcement of that. So we do anticipate that continuing and working closely with the OPP to manage those types of incidents.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments to our administrator? If not, then certainly looking at that the report prepared by our CAO 2021-01, the OPP policing contract be received, and that administration be authorized to finalize an agreement with the Ontario Provincial Police satisfactory in form and content to the town's legal counsel for the period of January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2023, based on a continuation of the current level of police service. And further, that a bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to sign the agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Ontario, represented by the Solicitor General in the town of Tecumseh, subject to approval of the 2021 operating budget allocation for police services. Moved by Deputy Mayor Becchetti and supported by Councilor Tonio. Any further questions or comments on the report? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Our next report, also prepared by our Chief Administrative Officer. It's the Mayor's Task Force on the 100th anniversary of the town and fire services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll briefly provide some background on that. So what we're seeking here is council's authorization to proceed with striking a mayor's task force to plan a celebration event for the 100th anniversaries of the town and the fire service in the spring of 2022. And the reason for that being that whilst the actual anniversary falls in 2021, due to the pandemic and clearly, you know, following today's announcements, the further tightening of controls on public activities, that we believe that this year is not an appropriate time to try to plan a public gathering. And that once the vaccination rolls out en masse, that we'll be in a better place and space to have that type of celebration in the spring of 2022 or even later if needs be. This would also allow us to, with the assistance of the Mayor's Task Force, pursue community sponsors and apply for any available senior government funding opportunities that could offset costs of the event. And that, of course, we would report back to council to seek approval of any final event plan prior to implementation. The report then goes on to give a little tiny bit of taste of history associated with Tecumseh and also the police and fire services when they were established in 1921, and the police and the fire service ongoing, you know, to this day. So the staff at this point in time have kind of brainstormed a bit on the types of activities that we might consider, the opening up the renovated town hall for an official opening, outdoor equipment displays, open houses for both fire stations with equipment displays, walking, driving tours of the town that could be downloaded and used by the public. Coordination of events with community historical organizations who we would hope would help us with highlighting historical events, and then perhaps outdoor barbecues in 2 locations, perhaps one in the north, one in the south, with a short program with dignitaries that could be held at different times of day and fireworks perhaps to end the evening. Now, none of this is cast in stone by any stretch of the imagination. It's just some preliminary conceptual planning. And the task force itself, looking at potentially configuring it to include Councillor Toniel on Mayor McNamara's recommendation, myself, the fire chief, our manager of strategic initiatives, Leslie Reeves, and perhaps representatives of community historical organizations. And if this finds favor with council this evening, then the mayor would proceed to invite participation from community organizations to be part of that task force. And we would commence with the activities, but of course, bring back a final set of recommendations on what the event would look like and the costs associated with it and where we might be able to source funds before proceeding with any actual event planning. So that is at this point the kind of high level conceptualization associated with planning for this event, but we're hoping that we get some discussion this evening and some additional ideas to be able to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO, on the report. Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Tonio. And Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for trusting me and being part of this task force. I look forward to being part of it. My background, I grew up in Sandwich South. I policed Sinclair Beach and part of Tecumseh my whole life. So I do have a big history of those three municipalities. I look forward to working with the Heritage Committee, our historical societies, the Aboriginal community, and our residents to have a great event and celebrate this town that we live in and enjoy so much. I'm looking forward to any suggestions and comments that people have, and anything else people need, please contact me. Again, reaching out to the various groups for their input and make sure this is a well-covered event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tonio. Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Worship, and I commend the administration and yourself for selecting the best possible representative to assist on behalf of council. Councillor Toniel is certainly the one I'd pick to get a good event going, and so I really commend the foresight. And I'm really actually looking.
Is he enthusiastic enough, though? Do you think?
I'm really looking forward to actually learning a lot in this centennial event. I mean, I've always lived in Tecumseh, apart from maybe the first 3 years of my life, but 1984, I've lived here. So I've learned, and I have pins and all kinds of mementos from the old town of Tecumseh. I'm very proud to serve on the council for the new town of Tecumseh. And this I see as a great opportunity to learn about each other and learn about each other's history. And I certainly look forward to celebrating that history and where we've all come from and where we're all going. So really, I think it's a great way to get out of the COVID pandemic. Fingers crossed that we get there, and to really have a rebirth of sorts to celebrate what a great town we live in, and what monumental things happened in the past, and where we're going in the future.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dowie. And certainly we'll be reaching out to members of council as well to bring perspective to the table. The one thing I find it's kind of ironic, and I mentioned that today to the radio station, when it was the fact that the birth of our community was right at the heels of the Spanish flu pandemic. And here we are exiting the COVID-19 pandemic in our, the tail end of the 100 years. But some of the history, it's not just, our namesake, but the forefathers of our community. And Colonel Poisson is a very, very interesting individual. And if you read the history of him, not only as our first mayor in the community, but I allude to him as the Samuel Adams of the revolution, because it was based, as you know, back in the US, in terms of their revolution, was based on taxes. And when you look at when we pushed for succession from Sandwich East, taxation was at the forefront. That at the time, many of those original forefathers of the community they were concerned that we weren't getting value for our money. And so there's some similarities in that. But if you, we certainly want to celebrate Colonel Poisson and as our first mayor, but also as quite a humanitarian and parliamentarian and war hero. And so we've got a lot of history, and it'll be fun to bring this forward. And and we can tap into individuals too that like our former administrator, Leo Lassard, who for almost 40 years was the administrator here. And I know Laura would worked for Leo in the early years and so forth. But it's hard to believe that I believe we only had about, I think Leo was probably the second, maybe third, but I think second administrator in the history of our community. And so, it's not like it seems like it's a big family. We always talk about Team Tecumseh and so forth, but from members of council to administration people, they're here for the long haul. So I'm looking forward to the celebration and to also include our Indigenous population within the region. I think it's critical. We are extremely proud of our namesake, Tecumseh, and what he meant to Canada, and certainly what he, there's not too many communities in Canada that have a namesake like Tecumseh, who, in my opinion, was a father confederation as well in the early part of it, because of what he did early on in our certain career. And as much as the Americans didn't like him, we love him, but still, there's 4 or 5 towns and cities in the United States that are named after Tecumseh. Our twin city, which is Tecumseh, Michigan. There's Tecumseh, Oklahoma. There's New Mexico. There's a few others in the area. So you can see the type of individual he was, and what a great way to celebrate that in the total package for us, and also celebrate the inclusion and amalgamation of our communities, and bringing all of that history as well. I think is going to bode well, and we'll have a great party. And Rick doesn't know, but he's the one that's going to have to bake the cake for everybody. Go ahead, Councilor Jobin.
Well, thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I just would like to add that I'm pleased to see of this initiative, and I would offer my assistance in any way to the task force, and whatever will be needed, I will participate for sure.
Thank you, Councilor Jobin. Deputy Mayor McKinney.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was good to hear that the task force is going to include the history of our amalgamated communities. And I was fortunate to be part of the 1993 centennial for Sandwich South, and I have someone who's on the screen, Mr. Sean Firth, was one on that committee. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of ideas of what was done then. But like Councillor Jobin said, it's important too that we celebrate the last 20 years of the new town of Tecumseh, which is part of the centennial of Tecumseh. And so whichever way you cut it, those semantics we can get over, but I'm glad that the mayor, yourself, you're doing a task force moving forward to plan something positive for this community, a post-COVID environment. Just a clarification, if I may, maybe the clerk, a few years ago, the council of the day did ask the Historical Society to review this centennial. It was a request. I just want to clarify that that was just received, that it was a suggestion that this task force it's on its own. It's got no ties to that discussion. I just want to clarify that moving forward. Maybe to the clerk.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Through you, Your Worship, in response to the Deputy Mayor, there was some dialogue with Council on a set of Cultural and Arts and Heritage Committee minutes there with regards to celebrating 100th anniversary of the town and the 20th anniversary of the town as it was amalgamated. There was no resolutions or motions passed at that time. It was just dialogue.
That'll be left to the task force and certainly at the end,
Yeah.
council's input.
All right, thank you very much and all the best. Like I say, I'm available, whatever you guys need. This is going to be, you know, like the mayor said, there's a lot of history there, a lot of community organizations that will be able to provide valuable feedback. And I commend all those that are stepping up. Thank you.
Well, like I say, get your aprons and your flippers ready because we'll be cooking a lot of burgers and hot dogs. So I'm sure that we're gonna put everybody to work. Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And this will be, I think, certainly, well, through you, a certainly wonderful opportunity that we all have have this chance in our lifetime to be involved with. And I think sometimes when we move through life, we don't recognize such grand opportunities, certainly to celebrate the centennial. And I think also be thankful and show a lot of gratitude to, as you've indicated, Mr. Mayor, of the work that the past people have done to make this community what it is. I think if we can certainly all roll up our sleeves and certainly participate with that great show of appreciation, all those efforts, we'll make this event wonderful, and I'm happy to assist however I can. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Councillor Altenhoff. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, and through you, I'll echo all the comments that were made, and I really see an opportunity for us to involve all of our committees, youth, senior, culture and arts, heritage, and especially I think there's an opportunity for the BIA to be part of this and be part of the planning. So, I'm happy to, advise the BIA when we do have the next meeting, but I think it's a great opportunity. So looking forward to seeing what will come out of the planning.
All right, great. And thank you for that. And certainly thank you to our CAO in preparing this report as well. So anyway, we'll roll up our sleeves and we're gonna, we'll have a lot to celebrate, getting away from COVID-19 and celebrating, the good news of, the first 100 years of our community and building the bridge for the next 100 years. So this is, I'm certainly looking forward to that. So we're looking for, obviously, a motion that the report CAO 2021-02, that's the Mayor's Task Force on the 100th anniversary of the town and fire services, be received, and that administration be authorized to proceed with the striking of the Mayor's Task Force, generally composed of the members set out in the report, to plan a celebration event for the spring of 2022. And further, that administration be authorized to pursue community sponsors and apply for available senior government funding opportunities to assist with the offsetting the costs of the event. And furthermore, that administration report back to council to seek approval of the final event plan prior to implementation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Becchetti and supported by Councillor Jobin. No further questions. I think we all did our part. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And thank you, members of council. The third and final report from our CAO is Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. That's the COVID-19 resilience stream. And Madam CAO, if you want to give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this, as council recalls, through you, as council recalls, we did bring a report late last year to authorize application for our allocation of $342,607 through the ICP COVID-19 resilience stream. And at that time, we were looking at building improvements as well as funding for the high water rescue vehicle. Further back and forth with the resilience stream team at the province indicated that unfortunately the high water rescue vehicle is not eligible for funding. And we tried, to use an old saying, 6 ways to Sunday to try to squeeze it into the program requirements, but it was not to be. So we decided that in order to meet our deadlines, that we would proceed with a modified application and then report out to council at this meeting to receive your approval for this modified approach. And we were, I think, safe in qualifying for eligible projects by focusing on the town's infrastructure, and particularly the built infrastructure. And so instead of dividing it up into 2 categories, we put all of our projects under category number 2, the COVID-19 resilience infrastructure, and proceeded with revising it to include replacement of all 10. So all of the original HVAC units at Town Hall with energy efficient units to increase the air quality and filtration, to add 10 portable air filtration units also in other town facilities to enhance air quality, to install the 10 of the 3-foot countertop glass barriers and 12 electronic wayfinding signs and meeting room displays to enhance physical distancing between staff and the public and reduce the need for person-to-person interaction, and to also install an electronic online appointment booking system to be used town-wide, all departments, once again, to reduce person-to-person interaction while continuing to provide customer service. And then finally, to install an electronic payment system for bulk water purchase to provide a convenient and remote method of payment for bulk water purchases, which would reduce the need for person-to-person interaction. All of those projects combined would use up the town's full allocation of $342,607. I'll come back to the high water rescue vehicle in a moment, but I did want to note that the bulk water purchase payment system was originally listed as one of the projects to be undertaken using the one-time municipal modernization fund received in 2019. This project was actually allocated $20,000 under the MMF funding to install the Water Oasis payment solution. And unfortunately, that is not sufficient funding. So we have decided to divert that project into this funding stream. And then in addition to that, there's some funding that is in the 2021 budget to help offset the remaining costs associated with that system. In terms of the high water rescue vehicle, our goal is to continue to pursue the acquisition of that vehicle in 2021. And by the savings that we would incur in the life cycle buildings reserves by using the ICIP funding for projects that were allocated to that reserve, we are recommending a one-time transfer of $210,000 from the Life Cycle Buildings Reserve to the Life Cycle Fire Apparatus Reserve to fund the purchase of the high water rescue vehicle. So that is what forms the third part of the recommendation in this report, Mr. Mayor. So we're asking for the report to be received, that council approve the change in project composition to fully utilize our allocation under the ICIP COVID-19 stream, and further authorize the transfer of $210,000 from Life Cycle Buildings Reserve to Life Cycle Apparatus Reserve in order to enable the purchase of a high water rescue vehicle as part of the Fire and Rescue Services 2021 capital budget, and on confirmation of the town's ICIP application being approved. So that is my report to you, and happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the report as presented? Motion, Councillor Dowie, move, support. Councillor Jobin, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried, unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to corporate services and our clerk. And it's the OPP building license agreement. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as Marg mentioned earlier in her report with regards to 2021-01 on the OPP policing contract, this report is provided in conjunction with that report. This report explains that within the OPP servicing contract, there is provisions for the parties to enter into formalized arrangements for the OPP's use of the town's building located at 963 L'Esperance Road to deliver the OPP policing services to the town. We are proposing, and we have received a draft contract from the CRBE in relation to this matter, which outlines or formalizes essentially the current arrangements that are in place for the OPP's occupation of the 963 L'Esperance Road. It provides for a 3-year contract, which is consistent with the term of the OPP proposed policing contract. It also provides for an opportunity for termination by either of the parties. It includes a provision for an extension with 6 months notice for the OPP to request a 1-year extension. It contains the usual and normal legalese in respect of mutual liability and indemnity, and of course formalizes the current arrangements whereby the town is responsible for maintaining the interior and exterior of the building. So we're looking for authorization from council to approve entering into this agreement, and that would be subject to review of the agreement by the town solicitor, as well as the finalization and entering into of the OPP policing contract. So in this report, the recommendation is that this report 2021-01 license agreement be received, administration be authorized to finalize a license agreement with the OPP occupation of the town's building located at 963 L'Esperance Road, obviously in satisfactory form with the town solicitor for the period January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2023. And that bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and council to sign that license agreement subject to approval of the proposed new OPP contract.
Great. Any questions or comments on the report? Okay, moved by Councillor Houston and Deputy Mayor Bichetti. Support? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried also unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to our fire and emergency services. We have the 5-year capital works plan for 2021, inclusive to 2025. And we do have Chief Bondi, if you want to certainly bring your report forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Just wanted to highlight a few items. For the purchases being requested in 2021, I would note that the first 4 being the gear used, pager, helmets, boots, and bunker gear. Those numbers represent replacements of gear that's expired only and purchased for recently hired firefighters. Given the economic conditions, we tried to minimize our expenditures this year. The locker replacements is a different story. We've, I guess, run out of room for locker space in Fire Station 1, and the lockers that would be replacing the existing ones are very easily cleaned. They are much more compact and would help the space savings out in the station. Going forward in the 5-year forecast, again, as mentioned, the first 4 items being pagers, helmets, boots, and gear. The numbers in the attachment 1 represents the minimum replacement and anticipated hires. So keeping costs to a minimum. The locker replacement in 22 represents replacement similar to what we would like to do this year for Station 1. Vehicle extrication tools in 2022 is a matching set for the south end, similar to what we purchased a couple years ago for Station 1. The SCBA cylinder replacement, as you remember, council approved SCBA replacement this past summer. Did not include the cylinders, only given that the cylinders we had another 5 years of life, useful life in them. And we've split that purchase over 2 years. Number one, to split the dollar over 2 years, but also to split the testing requirements over separate periods as well. The biggest purchase that's coming up, non-apparatus wise, I should say, is the county radio system replacement. I would note that the dollar figure that's in attachment 1, being the $610,000, does represent a worst case scenario. That is a cost that would be for us to just go out and purchase the hardware itself as a sole purchaser. Of course, any purchases at the time would be done in conjunction with the other county departments, and we would anticipate a significant cost savings at that time. With respect to the radio system replacement, our current contract does expire in 2021, and we'll be bringing a report forward for options between now and 2023 when the entire system would be replaced. That's my highlights, and I'm available for questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. One question I have on the radio acquisition and that, I mean, I remember years ago, they were looking at some sort of system to communicate like all the departments and working with the city of Windsor. What's the status on that? Are we still working? Obviously, their dispatch comes through from the city and that, but are we looking at coordination with other departments, or it's just a one-off for us?
No, the Committee of County Chiefs is still discussing the system. The recommendation for the amount in 2023 is based on discussions with the other chiefs. But I just wanted to make sure that that was the worst case scenario as far as financially. So the equipment that dollar value is based on is what the County Chiefs Committee is recommending. Just the dollar value is based on us purchasing it just as ourselves, not in coordination with the others. So that's where the savings would come in.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, thank you to Chief Bondi for the presentation and the details. Just with regards to attachment 1 on the life cycle cost for the fire equipment, noticing the balance effectively in the red for certainly the next 5 years. I just trying to get a feeling or understanding. You know, are we concerned with this? And is there maybe potentially something that we can do or start looking at now to minimize, you know, that red as we move to the future, kind of working as proactively as we can? Certainly, you know, and I've always been an advocate, certainly for the vehicle extrication equipment. You know, I learned my lesson when we were doing some engineering on advanced high-strength steels, recognizing that the equipment of the past will not work for the vehicles of the future. So we've got to make sure that we get the right equipment. We've got to make sure we have the right thing in place. And I understand there's costs on that. But any comments from you that, you know, maybe so we can, you know, proactively look towards getting into the black again, please, and thank you.
Yeah, I guess the first thing we did undertake was, as I had mentioned, the bulk of the purchases are just for replacements. There's really no way around that. We can't use expired gear beyond its life expectancy, but certainly we're not looking to purchase anything extra over and above what was required. With respect to the balance of the life cycle category, we will be working with our Director of Finance just to ensure that our annual allocation hopefully brings that number back into the black a little bit quicker. Certainly that the purchase in 2023 is quite significant and it puts a big hit on it, but we'll certainly work to get back in the black as soon as we can.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I just have one more question, Chief, and it's in regards to as we're moving more and more into electrification of our vehicles and so forth, and obviously safety concerns and the additional training, obviously, that especially at accident scenes and so forth. Is there any specialized equipment that we're going to be required as we continue to move more into hybrids and full electric vehicles?
Not specifically. It's more a matter of training, recognition of number one, the vehicle type, and number two, knowing where you can and can't cut in a vehicle. That's really what keeps us safe when we're on scene. There's not necessarily any specialized equipment for that type of work.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments on the Chief's report? Then the following equipment purchase for 2021 be approved, and that the equipment purchases be funded through Life Cycle Fire Equipment Reserve. And further, that attachment 1, fire equipment 5-year capital works plan 2021 to 25 be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Antonio and Councillor Dowie. Support, it's all in favor. Oppose if any. That is carried. Thank you, Chief. All right, Parks and Recreation, I believe, is the next. Yes, Parks and Recreation Services, and it's the 2021-25 Arena and Pool 5-year capital works plan. Mr. Anthony.
Yes, Mayor McNamara, members of council, just a few highlights on this report. There's a couple projects that certainly are energy efficient related. That's certainly the arena rink lighting, upgrading to LED lights, and the refrigeration and electrical upgrades, which the system is now 20 plus years, and there needs to be some work done on that with some of the new equipment we put in and the requirements of the electrical system. The HVAC units, we did budget last year. Unfortunately, we budgeted for 1 unit instead of 2, so we have to have the additional dollars to get 2. Those units will also help with the air filtration in the arena, turning over air quality and ensuring that the users of the facility are safe. A few areas of the flat roof need to be refurbished, and then the annual general repairs, which is there, unforeseen equipment that comes up to the year of smaller nature that needs to be addressed. The pool, our ongoing pump replacement to the pump pools, the pumping system in the pool. The chlorine tank replacement, as we know, chlorine does have its effect on equipment as it goes, so that will be replaced. And then the annual general life cycle repair again for some of the unforeseen equipment that goes. You will note in this budget this year that the Tecumseh Sportsplex allocations have been removed from the arena budget. They will now be dealt separately as we move forward with reports, individual reports on the complex as we go, as per council's directions on funding options, etc. The funding for the project doesn't come from the arena life cycle, so at this time we've removed it from it, but we'll keep council up to date as ongoing reports are completed. Outside of that, that's it for the life cycle report for this year for the arena and pool. Open for any questions.
Any questions to Mr. Anthony? Go ahead, Councillor Holton. No.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, thank you, Mr. Anthony, for your presentation. Do we have, any estimates? I know we've seen the benefits of going to, the LED streetlights as an example. Do we have any estimates to the potential cost benefits we may receive on these kind of energy reduced systems that you noted?
I don't have exact for our facility, but in consultation with local municipalities and specifically the city of Windsor, who did move to that with the WFCU center, and they have seen a good amount of savings in the in the systems. They certainly do not burn as much energy, and they are certainly beneficial.
Okay, okay. Any clarification on that? I know it's difficult to kind of compare apples to bananas, but you know, certainly, hopefully, this will benefit on many fronts.
Exactly. It reduces the heat load in the building as well. You know, from the tubes that are there, we've gone from the mercury vapors air to the T12s, T8s, and now to the LEDs, which certainly, you know, run more efficiently, less hot, and do help, you know, that in turn helps the refrigeration system as well, not have to run as long because they're not generating that extra heat.
Yeah, next to lumens, you know, the brighter light. Oh. Okay, any further questions to Mr. Anthony on his report? I see no requests. So then the following projects and renovations and repairs to our municipal buildings facilities be approved for 2021, and that the following plans be adopted. That's the Appendix A 2021, the 25 Arena 5-year capital works plan, as well as the Appendix B 2021-25 pool and 5-year capital works plan. So moved by Councilor Houston and Councilor Tonio on the plan, 5 years capital. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, I think we're done with reports, and then I believe we're ready, Madam Clerk, for bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first bylaw we have on the agenda this evening is bylaw 2021-01. This bylaw amends our Youth Advisory Committee. We had one of our young members resign from the committee, having moved outside of the community. So we are respectfully asking for first and second readings to this bylaw, and if appropriate, third and final. And I am asking for this bylaw to be considered separate and apart from bylaw 2021-02 in light of Councillor Altanoff's declaration of a conflict.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Do I have a mover? And yes, Councillor Houston and Councillor Tonio. On 2 readings, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And we can call for 3rd reading. Moved by Councillor Jobin and Councillor Houston. Support. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And then the last bylaw we have on the agenda this evening is bylaw 2021-02. This bylaw is a bylaw to authorize entering into a second amending agreement for the agreement of purchase and sale between the town and Burdett Inc. for the sale of the Mickle lands. We're respectfully asking for first and second, and if appropriate, third and final readings.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 2 readings. I'm looking for a mover and supporter. Councillor Houston moves. Support. Councillor Jobin. On the 2 readings, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. 3 readings are appropriate. Moved by Councillor Houston and supported by Councillor Dowie. 3 readings, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And so now, oh, go ahead. Oh, I think we're done. We've done 21, right? All right. I'll just add double pages. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. Okay, new business. Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to administration, perhaps Mr. Hillman, I think I sent an email out, received some complaints as well as, you know, I've certainly observed it myself over a period now of months. I want to say even we can quantify it using years. There's a house on the southeast corner of the Riverside Drive, Edgewater intersection, where I know there's been some work. Certainly it's stalled. The condition of the house seems to be one where, you know, it needs assistance, it needs help to move along. You know, if we could have perhaps, you know, the appropriate officer or the building individual look at that, and you know, if it's warranted, maybe some communications with the owner, you know, perhaps if necessary.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, thank you. Yeah, I just acknowledge the receipt of the email, and it is being looked at by Mr. Vogley. And once the site is attended and basically there's an assessment of the situation, we will certainly communicate that back as to, you know, what the next steps are.
Thank you very much.
All right, any further new business? Go ahead, Councillor Bichetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to give a shout out to the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit. I know you're the chair, Dr. Ahmed and his team. As you heard the Premier this afternoon, talking about the second state of emergency. It's critical now that the public needs to understand the seriousness of this, and in terms of, you know, doing their best with the vaccine rollout. I think our job is to influence upper levels of government to continue making Windsor-Essex one of the top priorities where we were left off. And I want to thank you for your advocacy there, because we are considered in that same realm. So moving forward, hopefully we'll get the resources needed, and also maybe perhaps have Marg review also those that work at the town. You know, he stressed those that could work from home. The next 2-3 weeks are critical, and we need to all do our best and do our role. So just kind of want to give a shout out in that regard and mention that. Thank you.
And before I have our CAO, I just want to make a comment. And there are, you know, there's a lot of angst out there, and there's a lot of folks that are I guess, pushing a lot of false information, and in terms of prep work and so forth. I can tell you and rest assured there are plans in place. There's the, you know, the phasing that is coming down from the province, but it's subject to supply and demand in the vaccines. The good news today, the Prime Minister secured 20 million more doses of Pfizer vaccine, which will be coming. And we're kind of, you know, at the head of that curve. But I can tell you, I want to thank our CAO. We had that conversation last week. She's been in constant contact with the health unit and her peers across the county, and putting our resources in the hands of public health in terms of when the supply does happen. And so I have full confidence in our CAOs and their CEMCs. And as a couple of the different groups that I've been talking with, is that municipalities, when the time will be right, when the vaccines are here, which is probably the latter part of you know, February and March, as we get closer to April in terms of the second wave, we will be ready. Municipalities, and I'm speaking to the converted here, we're all sitting here, but anytime administration or ourselves, when we come into work every day, you can expect at any time an emergency. It could be a train derailment, a plane crash, a fire in one of our main industries, floods, a whole host of items. And to assure the public is that when that does happen, we don't come to the office and sit in the desk and look at each other and say, okay, what do we do now? That's not the case. We train for this. And Councilor Toniel, as a police officer for 30 years, you know, you don't figure out, oh my gosh, I gotta think about this. No, you react on because of your training. And so I want to thank certainly our CAO, our fire chief, and our senior management team, who are all part of that group. And I have the utmost respect for what they do on an everyday in cooperation with our stakeholders out there, whether it's public health or our hospital, our EMS, our Red Cross, all of those agencies, we partner and work with them, and they're all part of the solution. What disheartening to me is when you see editorials in the Windsor Star saying that we're not putting enough vaccines in people's arms, or the province is not doing this, or and so forth, when there's so much work going into the background. And lo and behold, our long-term care facilities are all had the first round of vaccination. I had 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And just a few days before that, we were told that we were too slow putting vaccines in people's arms. So for us, and that's all of us around this table right here, is that we got to show the calmness to the general public. A lot of stuff is happening in the vaccines of our municipalities and so forth. And when you start, people doing this, pointing fingers at this person, that person, you're not doing enough, and this and that, it's very counterproductive. And so I'll pass it on to our administration. But I want to say, when the time's going to come, I have full confidence that our team is going to come through with flying colors, including the health unit. And their job is to make sure that they got the players and the vaccine. And when that happens, we'll do the rest. And I have full confidence that we will deliver, because, our people, us, we train for this, so I'll leave it at that. But I just want to send a message out to our residents that listen to what public health is saying right now, adhere to what they're saying. And when the vaccines come and we do all our part, we'll get through this thing. But we need to do our part before. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. And you sit on the health unit as well. And you know from our meetings the difficulties that they've been faced with, but they're marching along. And I know sometimes even for us as elected officials, we're getting bombarded from all sides. People worrying about this, worrying about the budget, where we're going to get the vaccination, all this other stuff, and so forth. But assure the general population that everybody is doing their part, whether it's the Premier of Ontario, the Prime Minister of Canada, the mayors in the communities, the councillors, and our certainly our administrative staff, and are doing in my opinion, tremendous work. And again, can't say it enough, full confidence, we're going to deliver. No problem. They get Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, you give us the vaccine and we'll put it in people's arms. So, Margaret?
Sure. Just briefly, thank you very much, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, for your kind words and confidence. We are taking measures. We have a number of our staff working from home where possible. We've updated our protocols. We will meet as a senior management team tomorrow and have a look at the new announcements and the rollout of additional restrictions and take measures to ensure our staff are safe as best we can, and including additional work at home as technology and other factors permit. We are also, to the Mayor's point, ready to provide resources to the health unit under their leadership and their guidance. It has to be done through the public health framework to assist with the rollout of the vaccine when the time comes for the public vaccination. So starting to meet with my colleagues and as is the Fire Chief as our CEMC with his colleagues, and doing some preliminary thinking on how we can accommodate within our facilities and with our staff to assist with the regional rollout. So we will keep council apprised. There may be some measures, as you know, council, we're still under the initial declared state of emergency from earlier this year. So we will revisit some earlier measures that were taken that were kind of rolled back over the summer when conditions improved, and see if they need to be reinstated to help people over the coming period of this more significant lockdown. So that will be part of what we discuss as a senior management team tomorrow. And within our delegated authorities that council has granted, we will take those measures and ensure that council is apprised of all of those. So thank you for asking the question, and thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for your kind words.
Okay, Councillor Dowie, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, separate from the pandemic, I have to commend our administration for doing yeoman's work, especially our CAO. But honestly, there have been a lot of issues that are more routine in nature that are on their plate as well, and they're getting through them very quickly and very efficiently. I've brought a number of issues from residents forward, and they've been addressed extremely well. I've received kudos from persons who have been very critical in the past about the level of service that has been demonstrated. So I do want to share that with the administration, that your good work is not going unnoticed in terms of the resident concerns, that they are absolutely seeing some deliverables, and that you're taking what they're saying very seriously. So I really appreciate that from my side. It certainly gives an impression that I'm doing something, but it's not me that's doing anything, it's the staff. And I really appreciate that being addressed, even though these items may not really appear to be the highest priorities in terms of what's being reported, but they are high priorities for the people reporting them. So I really appreciate that. And second, just want to acknowledge even some work on a pending issue, the Riverside Drive trail issue that is forthcoming. Administration has definitely worked with members of council to bring forward I'd say a great outline of how this process ought to move forward, and in a few weeks' time. And so I appreciate giving consideration to council's asks, and working with us to deliver a great start for resumption of the process. So with that, just say thank you very much. It's not unnoticed, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think I know why they achieve all this stuff, is because we cloned them. And there's about 3-4 Margaret, 4 or 5 Lauras, and 3 or 4 fire chiefs, and and all the rest of the clan. But thank you for that, Councillor Dowie, because you're absolutely right. Okay, any further new business? All right, then confirmatory bylaw is next on the order desk. Councillor Altenhoff moves, and Councillor Houston support. 3 readings to confirm the proceedings of our meeting. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Any notices of motion at this stage? None. Our next meeting, members of council, will be January 26th, 5 o'clock. We have public council meeting. And that's the draft new official plan. And at 7 p.m. we'll reconvene on our regular council meeting. There's no further questions or comments, then adjournment is certainly in order. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor, you move, you second that, Ms. Moy?
Your Worship, if I may, just a friendly reminder, and I apologize, it may not have been listed on before you. We also have the budget meeting tomorrow night, Tuesday or Wednesday, January 13th, tomorrow evening, which will be conducted via Zoom as well for the benefit of the public.
Oh, I was aware of that, and if council wasn't aware of that, shame on them. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. No, I didn't have it here, but yes, we have council tomorrow. I thought the regular order business, I guess. So thank you for that. Okay, adjournment again is in order. Councillor Tonio and Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And that's it. So members of council, I bid you good evening. Members of administration, the same. And hopefully tomorrow, Margaret, you get to enjoy that little baby of yours. Once again, congratulations on that. And to the viewing